Hi, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Nicola and I'm really excited to start this journey with you of hopefully unlocking some of the joy of parenting because parenting is meant to be really fun, but actually is really hard work and it can be really confusing and it can be really hard to know what to do and what choices you should be making. Um, and the sort of stress and chaos of it can actually take away a lot of that joy. So I'm hopefully going to give you some strategies and give you some confidence to help to unlock some of that joy that I'm sure you wish you were feeling. So I'm here on behalf of the Child Behaviour Network, and we provide training and consultancy to families and also organisations to help them to better understand and support children with additional needs or just challenging behaviour in general. So I'm a child behaviour specialist. My formal training is as a Norland Nanny. I have a first class degree in early years development and learning and a Norland diploma, and I've been working with children for over 15 years now. So, whether you are a grandparent, teacher, family friend, whether you help children sort of informally, whether you're a carer, whether you're a parent, we are here to make that as fun as possible for you and for your child. So, what we're going to talk about today, we're going to have a little think about why we see certain behaviours. And they're going to give you what we call our guiding principles. So these are things that I think are really helpful to have in place all of the time to help to prevent some of the challenging behaviour and to encourage more of the behaviour that we want to see. We're going to talk about empathy and how helpful that can be. And then I'm going to encourage you to set one or two targets. So if we start the session by thinking about what behaviour is it that is challenging us? I'm sure there's lots of things. I've put some ideas up there on the screen to sort of prompt you to think about actually what are the specific moments in the day that are the biggest pinch points for our family. And if you can bring to the forefront of your mind one or two specific things that you would love to change over the next few weeks, I think that'll be really helpful as I go through the different ideas I have, because you can think actually, yeah, that would be really helpful for that school run. That school run, getting home from school, is the hardest part of the day. So actually I'm going to listen to what Nicola says and try and find an idea to help with that. I'm sure there's probably more than one thing you want to address, but if you can just think of one or two for now, and then we can work on that for a few weeks, and then you can always set another target after that. If we start by thinking about why we see certain behaviours in our children, why we see maybe some of those more challenging behaviours, all behaviour is communication. That doesn't mean that all behaviour is acceptable. Your child might be communicating their behaviour in a way that we don't want them to. So we might know that they're hitting us because they're angry. That doesn't make the hitting okay, but it does tell us something. So all of their behaviour is communicating something. So a few analogies to help us in terms of how we think about behaviour as the adult. And also, depending on your child's age and stage, you might be able to share these analogies with them. So I love this quote: beneath every behaviour, there is a feeling, and beneath each feeling is a need. And when we meet that need, rather than focus on the behaviour, we begin to deal with the cause and not the symptom. So if we think about our children as being like an iceberg, and the behaviours that we see, that's just the tiny bit on top of the iceberg. So maybe they're controlling, maybe they're angry, maybe they seem to be a bit manipulative, maybe they're aggressive, maybe they're defiant. That's all the stuff that's happening on the surface. That's what we see. But they're not behaving that way for no reason. They're behaving that way because of a need deep down that is driving the behaviour. So we have to be trying to work out. I sometimes say that we sort of act like detectives to work out what is going on underneath the surface for our child. Are they feeling confused? Are they feeling anxious? Right now, do they not feel safe? Are they worried about something? Are they frightened? Do they actually feel, are they struggling with like feelings of worthiness? Are they struggling with feeling shame? All of those feelings deep down will be driving the behavior we're seeing on the surface. And we need to be addressing that underlying need in order to stop the behavior. So that's one thing to think about. The other is if we think about our children as being like a Coke bottle, this is particularly helpful when thinking about the more explosive behavior that we might refer to as like a meltdown. So, for example, if we think about our child as a Coke bottle, and as they go through their day, things might happen that shake up the Coke bottle and make it more fizzy. So maybe they wake up late on Saturday, so now they're running late for football. Shake the Coke bottle. They don't get their full proper breakfast because they were in a rush. Shake their Coke bottle. They get to football, but their best friend's not there, so they've got no one to pair up with. Shake their Coke bottle. On the way home in the car, their siblings winding them up. Shake the Coke bottle. It's raining, so you've actually decided not to go to the park this afternoon. The plan's changed. Shake the Coke bottle. Um, this evening, Saturday evening, always you watch a movie as a family. But this week, it's not their week to choose the movie. Someone else is choosing the movie, and they don't like the movie. Shake the Coke bottle. And then you say, would you like a snack to have? And they tell you what snack they'd like, and you say, oh, we don't have that. And they absolutely explode. They have a massive meltdown over the snack. Now, what's happening in that moment is it's not actually about the snack. The lid has come off of their Coke bottle, and all of the fizz that's been building up throughout the day has just exploded. So you can do everything in that moment to try and address the snack situation, but because it's not about the snack, it's not going to work. So we need to bear in mind that actually the behavior we're seeing could be a cumulative effect over the day or the week. There could be lots going on for your child that is shaking up their Coke bottle. If there's long-term things going on, your child might be waking up and their Coke bottle's already like half shaken up. So it doesn't take much to shake it to the point where it explodes. What we're going to look at today, our guiding principles, are ways to take some of that fizz out of the Coke bottle. So if you think of a Coke bottle, when it starts to get fizzy, you can open the lid slowly and it sort of like lets out a bit of fizz. We're hopefully going to put little moments into your child's day that take that fizz out, because inevitably things are going to happen to shake up their Coke bottle. You can't control everything. Things will happen in the world that will shake up their Coke bottle. So we're going to try and put some things in place to counteract it and take some of the fizz out so that it doesn't explode in the first place. Some helpful language around behaviour, I think, in terms of especially with talking with your child about it, is if you think of our bodies as being like a car engine, sometimes it's too high and sometimes it's too low. So we're having a conversation with our child about like, are you in a high gear? Are you feeling like hyped up? Are you stressed out? Are you feeling a bit like you're swerving out of control? Are you in a low state? Actually, like the car's not really going. You're a bit lethargic. You're a bit droopy. We're not really getting anywhere. Or are you in the middle? Are you just right? Are you alert, attentive? Is it easy to focus? Is it easy to follow instructions? Are you just right? And that really simple language of just saying to our child, do we feel too high or too low right now? Can be really helpful for them to communicate with you and for you to acknowledge with them, I think you're feeling X. So I'm now going to talk you through some of those guiding principles that I've been referring to. I'm going to do it quite briefly because I wanted to sort of cover all of them, but I didn't want to take up too much time. So apologies if I'm moving quite quickly, but I wanted to get it all in for you. So firstly, a calm and organised environment. So this is about making sure that our children have a predictable routine, helping them know what to expect, what's coming up today or this afternoon, explaining if plans change. Consider using a visual timetable. I'll show you some examples of that next. If your child struggles with transitions, it might be helpful to be doing 5 and 2 minute warnings. So just letting them know in 5 minutes, it's going to be time to stop playing and we're going to go and have a bath. So they have an idea and they can start to mentally prepare for what's going to be happening next. And organised resources. I know that's so much easier said than done because children are often kind of chaotic. But it's really helpful if, for example, the challenge is getting out of the house in the morning. The last thing we also need is to say to our child, please, could you put your shoes on? And then we can't find the shoes. So if we can have things in the same place all the time, like set your child up for a win, make it really easy for them to do what you would like them to do. If it's doing their homework, and that's a struggle, and you're having this like back and forth challenge of whether they want to do their homework or not. They finally say, fine, I'll do it. And then the pencil's blunt and you can't find the sharpener. It's not helpful. That could be enough to take the lid off their Coke bottle and cause an explosion. So as much as we can, trying to keep on top of that, and get them involved with it, that really will sort of streamline things and make your life a lot easier. So in terms of that predictable routine, I mentioned visual timetables. I'll show you an example. So it could look something like this, where it's just got pictures of what's happening each day, each like moment throughout the day. This is made on a website called Widget, Widgit, which I think you have to pay a small subscription for. But you can just like draw the pictures on a whiteboard. You can literally draw it on a piece of paper. I've had moments before where I've been out with a child and I've suddenly thought they're starting to struggle, they're really confused, and you like get a napkin or a spare envelope and you draw some pictures. This is what we're doing now. We need to go to the shops. Then we're getting in the car and we're going home, draw a picture of a car, picture of a house, and then you can have your TV time. So they have the process of they're saying they want to go home and watch TV. And we can say, we hear you. That is happening. It's on the plan. It's just not happening yet. These other things need to happen first. And it's really clear for them. The other thing to think about is language. So language is so powerful, and it needs to be really carefully considered for all children, but particularly when talking to a child who's maybe having a bit of a difficult time. So make sure that you're giving really specific instructions. So for example, instead of saying you want to see good behaviour at dinner, you might say you'd like to see them using their cutlery and trying to eat everything on their plate. Also think about reducing the language that you're using. So think about giving short, simple, repeated instructions. So for example, it's so easy to do as an adult to fall into sort of having a dialogue with your child, which is great when it's general chat about what was your day like, how are we doing. If you actually want an outcome, if you actually are expecting them to act on what you're saying, try and be really intentional about it. So instead of saying, okay, Sam, so soon it's going to be time to go to Rush. We're going to Rush with Emily today. How exciting is that? So we're going to need to get your Rush socks. So I think they might be in your bedroom drawer somewhere. I think they're in your sock drawer because we bought socks last time we went. So I think your socks are upstairs. And let me know if you want a snack before we go. You can choose a snack from the snack drawer. So we're going to be leaving in about 5 minutes. And then maybe in 5 minutes you go and ask your child why they don't have their socks and their snack. Actually, like, did we want our child to act on that, or were we information sharing? Like, what do we want our child to do from this? So it might be saying, Sam, in 5 minutes, we're going to tidy up because then we're going to Rush with Emily. So in 5 minutes, I would like you to go and find your Rush socks. And if you would like a snack, we'll get a snack before you go. So I'm going to leave you to play for 5 more minutes and then we'll tidy up and get ready to go. Even everything I've just said, that could be far too much for your child. So it might be even simpler than that. It might be 5 more minutes playing, then we're going to Rush. That might be the amount of information that you think your child can process sort of in one moment. So then when the 5 minutes is finished, then you say, please, could you go and get your Rush socks? They get their socks, they come back. And then you say, would you like a snack? So you have to sort of gauge where your child's at in terms of how much they can process, which can vary from day to day, which I know is really hard. But our children, it's called executive functioning. If we think of our children's brains as being like air traffic control, and they're trying to land all these different planes. And so maybe one plane is the game that they're trying to do. One plane you've just added to their flight path is the Rush socks. Another plane is the snacks. And our children can only deal with landing so many planes at once. And if we give them too many, the plane's going to crash and our child will have a meltdown. So we just need to gauge how many planes our child might have flying around their brain right now and be mindful to not be adding too many. Also allow take-up time. So when giving instructions to your child, we then need to give them quite a lot of time, probably more time than we realise, to process the information that's been given and act on it. So it might be that we've said, please could you put all the pens in the pen pot when they're colouring. The best thing to do is then just walk away and do something else and then come back. Because in their minds, they might be thinking, I'm just going to finish colouring this section and then I'm going to put it away. But they might not have the words to say that to you. So let's just avoid the conflict, because it's so easy when you're stood next to them to say, did you hear me? Or can you hurry up? Actually, if we can, I've allowed plenty of time that we can just leave them for a few minutes, go away and do something else and come back. And we can always then prompt again, say their name, get their focus. It's time to put the pens in the pen pot. But just giving them time to sit with the instruction you've given them, you might actually find they then follow it. Whereas if we follow up on it too quickly after, that can sometimes cause those sort of heightened emotions and tensions within the house, which we want to avoid, because we're trying to find the joy of parenting, and actually having to ask our child to do things 3 times is not joyful. It's lovely to only ask them once. For some children, it can be really helpful to have things communicated in a visual way. So I mentioned sort of having that simple instruction of what's happening now and next. It might be helpful to show them with pictures. This might actually be helpful even if you think your child is beyond this. Maybe they have good language skills. That doesn't mean they won't find this helpful. This can be helpful for all children. If you think, so it might seem that your child has quite sophisticated language skills, but that doesn't mean that they won't benefit from this if they're feeling, if we think about those planes and they have lots of planes they're trying to land, this can sort of bypass a lot of their brain and takes a lot less brain power to process. So if they can see this visually, perhaps you have a child that is often saying to you, like, is it time to go to the park? Can we go to the park yet? Can we go to the park yet? Showing them this could be a really helpful way to actually get the information across in a more concrete way than just doing verbal instructions. Praise is the other thing I want to talk about. I think praise sometimes gets a bit of a sort of almost bad reputation recently, because we're sometimes criticised for overpraising children, and I think actually that's not true. I think that we should be praising all the time, but with the following caveats. Make sure your praise is genuine. Children know when it's not. For example, if a child has done their homework and maybe you know that they didn't want to be doing it, they eventually said, fine, I'll do it. They've done their homework. You know, and they know that they've done the bare minimum. They've not excelled in this homework. They did the minimum they needed to do to get you and the teacher to stop asking them to do it. They come and show it to you. Don't overload them with praise, because that's just really confusing for them, because they know that it's not their best work. So what we might say is something like, I'm really proud of you that you did that, because I know you didn't really want to do it. And I know you were feeling really grumpy about having to do it. I'm really proud of you that you've done it anyway. And it's great that we can now tick it off your list. That's genuine praise, because they have done something good and we can find that good thing and acknowledge it. But I'm not saying, oh, that's brilliant, you've worked so hard on that, because they know that they haven't. So then it all just feels disingenuous, and then they don't really sort of believe that the praise is genuine anyway. Also, making sure that the praise is really specific and labelled. So rather than just saying, well done, you were really good on that play date. You were really good this morning. We've had a really nice day. Make sure you're being really specific about what it is. And this is sort of linked to being genuine. So, for example, I once said to a child, well done, that was a really nice play date in the car on the way home. I had a really nice time. Thank you for playing so nicely. And he said, well, it wasn't that good, was it? Because I did hit Tommy. And I said, oh, yeah, you did hit Tommy, and you shouldn't have done that. And yeah, we addressed that at the time, but we'll move on. We don't need to talk about that anymore. What I meant was, you did the puzzle really nicely, And I'm really proud of you for how well you sat and ate your dinner, even though I know that you didn't really like that, but Tommy's mum had cooked it for you. So it was really nice that you just sat quietly and ate it, even though it wasn't really your favourite. And you didn't mention anything about not liking it. That was really good. That was the praise I should have started with, because he knows the whole play date wasn't good. So actually, it was much more helpful if I'd have just said, ignore the bad thing, because we dealt with that at the time. Afterwards, we're just saying, it was really nice how well you did that puzzle. It was really great that you ate all your food, even though you didn't really like it. And I'm really proud of you that you didn't tell Tommy's mum that you didn't like it. Because then they know what to repeat next time. Then next time you go for a play date, they're thinking, I don't really like this food. But my adult said that it was really good that I didn't mention that I don't like it. So that was a good choice. So I'm not going to mention that I don't like this. So it's reinforcing the behaviours we want to see. And we can deal with the negative behaviour in the moment, but we don't need to keep going over and over it. But we can keep going over and over the good behaviours that we saw. And also praising partial compliance. So this is where we maybe ask the child to do something and they do half of what we've asked them to. So perhaps we say, dinner's ready, please could you come and sit down? It's time to eat dinner. And they come and sit down nicely, but they don't eat. I would say, I can see you're sitting so nicely in your chair, thank you. And then I would ignore the fact that they're not eating and I would just say, how was your day at school? That doesn't mean that in 5 minutes we can't follow up and say, I'd like you to try some of your dinner, please. But if the first thing we do is praise the good thing, that's going to make them feel good about themselves. It's going to affirm them. And it's going to make them feel like the positive choices that they make are what get them the connection with you. Whereas if the immediate thing we say is, please could you start eating? They might think, well, what's the point of sitting nicely on my chair? Because she hasn't even noticed that I've sat nicely on my chair. So now I'm going to stand up and see if she notices that. Whereas if we can flip the mindset to, oh, she's noticed I'm sitting nicely on my chair, maybe she'll notice if I eat nicely. We want to have that positive mindset rather than them looking for connection seeking through the negative behaviour. The fourth guiding principle is connection. So this is thinking about connecting with that feeling that's underneath the surface. If we think about the iceberg. So for example, perhaps they're playing with their sibling, they get cross and they hit their sibling. The first thing we're going to do is acknowledge the emotion. We say name it to tame it. So we might say, I can see you're having some really big feelings. I wonder if you're angry because you've lost the game. We then validate the feeling. It's okay to feel angry. I completely understand. It's really frustrating to lose. Even adults get really frustrated when they lose at games. But we then, crucially, set limits. So we might say, but it's never okay to hit. We don't hit in this family. And then number 4, we problem solve. So we might say something like, shall we play the game again? Or would you like to play a different game together? So these 4 steps can be applied to any emotion, like any big feeling that your child is having. You can almost sort of follow the script of acknowledging it, validating it, setting limits and problem solving. The crucial thing to recognize is the child is always loved. The feeling is always valid, but the behavior might not be acceptable. And it's making that distinction between the feeling being okay, but setting limits on the behavior and helping them to identify how to express the behavior more positively. Final guiding principle is having a think about your child's senses. So we actually have 8 senses. So 5 you've probably heard of: sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. The other 3 might be new to you. So the vestibular system, that's the balance sense. This allows us to stay upright, keep balance when we walk and run. Proprioception is our sense of movement, where our body is in relation to the world around us. And interoception, which helps us understand what's going on inside of our body. So if we think about all of our senses as like being a cup, and for us to stay regulated, our cups need to be filled. When we receive sensory input, it fills up our cup. So for each sense, some of us have big cups and some of us have small cups, and that's where it can get a bit tricky. So imagine you have a small cup for sound It fills up with a little noise, and then any more feels overwhelming. But imagine you have a big cup for proprioception, that touch sense. You will need a lot of movement to fill up your cup. So for these children, they might need additional movement breaks. They might need to carry heavy things. They might need to wear a weighted backpack, have a weighted blanket. They might need to jump on a trampoline before they sit down and have dinner. So really why I'm saying this is I want us to maybe reframe what it is we're seeing. So look at our child and look at their body and their movement and ask ourselves, what does my child's body need right now? Rather than what they're doing is annoying, which is sometimes how it can feel in the moment. Actually thinking like, what is their body trying to achieve? Are they trying to achieve movement? Are they leaning up against me because actually they need a hug and a squeeze? Like, what is their body trying to communicate with us? So there are 5 guiding principles: calm and organized environment, language, praise, connection, and thinking about their sensory needs. I also now just want to talk for a couple of minutes about empathy. So empathy is very different to sympathy. Empathy is like if we imagine our child has fallen down the bottom of a pit. Maybe they're having a really bad day, they come home from school, they explode. They've fallen down the bottom of a pit. Empathy is climbing down and sitting at the bottom of the pit with them. It's connecting with the emotion that they're feeling. So we don't necessarily have to be able to connect with their experience. So maybe they're having a meltdown because they don't want to brush their teeth because they're saying, I hate that feeling in my mouth. Perhaps we don't have those sensory needs. So we can't relate to that because we find it brushing our teeth fine. That's okay. We don't have to connect to the experience. We're connecting with the emotion of having to do something that you find really uncomfortable. We've all had to do things we find really uncomfortable. So connect with that emotion. It's acknowledging that feeling and that emotion as being valid. It's understanding and echoing what someone else feels. So it's not walking in someone else's shoes. It's listening to the story they're telling about what it's like in their shoes and believing them even when it doesn't match our experience. An empathic response doesn't start with at least. So if our child is really distressed about going to school, it's not helpful to start with at least it's only a half day, because that invalidates their feeling of not wanting to go to school. So we have to start with, oh, I know, like it feels really overwhelming right now. The thought of having to go to school and be apart from me and be out of the house for the whole day might feel really overwhelming right now. Tell me about it. That doesn't mean that once we've listened, we can't help them get to a place where we then say, I wonder whether it's helpful to remember that it's only a half day today. So that might make it feel slightly better. But we're not starting with that. First, we're sitting at the bottom of the pit with them. We then get them to a place where we climb out the pit and we say, come with me. Follow me up the ladder out of the pit. And the other thing you can do is drop an empathy bomb. So this is if you have something difficult to tell a child, perhaps the plan has changed. They were meant to be having a play date this afternoon and now they're not. We can get out ahead of it by saying, I've got something really difficult to tell you, or we need to talk about something that might make you feel a bit sad. And if you feel a bit sad, that's okay. I'm here to help you and we'll go through that feeling together. So you're saying all of that, you're giving all the empathy actually before the negative thing has happened. And it just sort of helps to like shield them from the difficulty of what might be about to happen. So empathy is massive. Empathy is one of the best tools that you can have in your toolkit. And I would say is one of the most effective tools. What I would love for you to do following this is set yourself a target. Make sure it's smart, so specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So what is it that you would like to achieve? Thinking back to those scenarios that I said to come up with at the beginning. Actually, over the next 6 weeks, for example, what can you do from what I've said today? What guiding principle or what specific strategy are you going to take and apply to your situation? And how are we going to measure whether we've sort of achieved results? and be really realistic with it. It can be something really small, but actually it's just taking those, like, if we think of it as we're trying to get from one side of the river to the other, these are all stepping stones. We're just saying, let's take the first step. There's no point trying to jump to the other side of the river. We can't get there. Let's take that first step. So I'd really encourage you to like make a note of it and maybe set yourself a reminder to sort of look back at it in 6 weeks or something and think, actually, like, have I got there? And if so, well done. And if not, how can we tweak this so that we can get there? Key takeaway messages: remember to connect before you correct, praise the behaviors you want to see more of. Um, Self-care: you have to put your own oxygen mask on before you can help someone else. And remember, there's always a reason for the behavior. If you found this really helpful and you want to follow up with some either coaching or consultancy, so either we meet online and we chat a bit more about what's going on for you and how we could apply these to your personal situation, or you want to do some coaching where I come to your house and I sort of like guide you through how you implement these strategies with your children, then please do get in touch. You can book directly online or email me. I hope that's been helpful, and it's been a bit of a sort of whistle-stop tour through many different ideas, but hopefully there's something that you can grab there and hang on to. Thank you so much for your time.